Report, and we have Tim Alexander here. I want to start off. Yesterday we had our power outages, and I got an email contact from Professor McKinney, who's in places unknown, not in North America, and he told me they pulled up research, and this is from the All News Pipeline. Something very strange is happening right now. Jade Helm 15 began the same day surface outages reported across America by multiple providers, and I got the provider list, and it shows actual areas, giant areas all across the country. Here in San Diego, didn't even put a sign up, but in Los Angeles, Washington State, Colorado, all across the United States, giant areas of the country had power outages. And again, remember, Jade Helm is terror porn, and it may seem like it's just scary, but what they're doing is they want to see the response of the public. They input the results to their supercomputers, monitoring and simulating mass human behavior to different drivers. So people need to understand what Jade Helm is a program, and that's why a number of Marines, etc., that are involved with this project, when they found out what's really going on, they quit on the spot yesterday. And what people need to really understand, this is an obscenity. Any state government permitting the federal government to do this needs to be shot. This is sickening, because power outages and trying to see what people will do when you get power outages, and we had all kinds of sirens going here, like the air raid sirens going here, all caused because they want to see what are behavioral responses they can put in their computers so they'll know when they do something real, what is the public going to do in response.
Now that makes sense, but you see, I've been reading a lot of stuff about Jade Helm as you have, for about 3 months, and they were going to send us all to prison, and
no, they're doing simulation.
There was an awful lot of fear pornography, fear porn.
Their point isn't to try to create just fear. Their point is to create a database of responses so they can try to predict what behavior.
Well,
remember now, this is a wet dream for the globalists and the control freaks in our government.
That's pretty standard for them.
Tim, this is a wet dream for the government to do this. If they actually tried to pull off martial law in this country, do they realize how fast we would be lynching them up? We wouldn't have enough trees to lynch all the politicians and the people who do this.
Well, they may be stupid enough to try something like that. I mean, remember, look at Sandy Hook. The school had been closed for 2 years. It had asbestos in it, and they've since torn it down. Nobody was killed. There were no pictures of blood or bodies. It was a drill, and the people in that little community each family has gotten over $200,000 from the federal government. It was a scam done a week and a half before Christmas to drive everybody into accepting draconian gun control legislation in violation of the Constitution, and it totally backfired. Everybody went out and bought guns. I couldn't even buy shotgun ammunition. Everything was stripped from the shelves. Everybody was out buying every gun, every bit of ammunition they could. And, people at a certain level said, oh, my God, they're coming after the guns. Let's load up. And these people they don't think like we do, because they're demonic. And, even the average kind of rotten person, they're not very, very nice. They're not necessarily demonic. These people have engaged in satanic rituals. Like I said the other day when I was on, one of the insiders from the Clinton administration, when he was governor of Arkansas, noted that the First Lady of Arkansas, dear old Hillary, was always flying out to California on the weekends. And they finally asked Bill, he said, what the hell is she doing, going to California every weekend? And Bill said, well, she's a member of this Church of Satan out there, and a bunch of them meet and have their what other they do. And, I mean, you can't make stuff like that up, because these people are not just rotten to the core. At the core, it's evil. It's from a different dimension. It's from hell itself. And I don't think like that. You don't think like that. And I imagine 99.9999% of our listeners don't think that way, because we're not demonic. Thank God.
I can think about it. This is something unusual about you and I, and people that are what I call real warrior Christians, leaders, is we can get into their mindset to understand how nuts and what I call emotionally and mentally challenged these idiot Satanists are. Because people like Hillary Clinton, people like Obama, these people, I mean, I saw him talking about how self-appointedly proud he is of his deal with Iran. They have a 24-day time period delayed before they can do a physical inspection. You can move a nuclear reactor in 24 days. And he smirks and says, well, they can't pick it up and move it around. Are you an idiot?
Well,
Come on.
You know, I don't think if Iran has nukes, and she may have a handful, but her nuclear power is not the real danger to the world. Her
No, that's not
advanced
true. No,
biological weaponry is the danger.
Stop. I'm going to make a few steps and you'll see my logic here. It's not whether Iran has nukes, because it'd be idiots to use them against Israel.
Yeah.
It's because Iran gets nukes, every other sawed-off little republic that's got enough oil wells to buy a nuke or intercontinental missile to deliver a biological weapon will have one. I sat on July 10th, 1994, in the underground theater, 440-seat theater, at the underground city, Schriever Air Force Base, with 3 higher levels of security than NORAD, after I had Q-level security clearance, the same or higher level than the U.S. President. And I sat in that theater for 45 minutes, and they gave us a big presentation to give the foreign dignitaries and heads of state in video, digital video, of all nations that are going to proliferate nuclear weapons. And what Obama's done is guaranteed that the entire Middle East will have a whole pile of nations in 5 to 10 years. It'll be loaded up to the gunnels with not only nuclear weapons, but biological weapons, delivery systems, space-based weapon systems, any conventional weapons.
Well, they already have some of that. I mean, they already have some
problem is
delivery systems.
We had a let me finish. We had a system specifically to block sale of arms to Iran. This deal doesn't get Americans out of there that are being held illegally in prison. It doesn't stop Iran from having enough material. They have enough material now to make their own 10 bombs, let alone they could call up Waziristan and Pakistan and say, just ship it over the mountains by a heavy lift jet and bring over nukes to their missile systems. They have the Shahib-3 missile, and most people don't realize this. The Shahib missile now is being re-engineered to go 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers, and pretty soon it'll be able to hit the continental United States. And people say, well, they can't do that. I said, look, do you think the Iranians are stupid? No, they're catching up.
Well, you remember, we have a treaty that blocks people from doing this, so we set this concept aside.
But that treaty is null and void after this idiot document that Obama did.
Orbital bombardment. If rather than merely ballistic, if you launch a device into space, you can pretty much, provided you can get it in the right orbit, you can pretty much bring it down where you want to, and that can be on the other side of the planet, or it can be delayed by several days. And there's a treaty to prevent that, but that only prevents it as long as the signatories.
Do you think that
the
Iranians are going to, who had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and this is why I'm telling people, it's not whether Iran, do you think the mullahs are nuts, or do you think that they're just clever and evil? They're literalists. They believe if they bring about the bomb, they're going to make the Imam Mahdi show up.
Well, could
the
be.
thing is, it's not just them.
I don't think they have to use the bomb to do that. I think they've got the weapon now.
Here's the thing.
Look,
if 10 nations,
Tim,
if 10 nations have bombs in 10 years' time,
their Messiah, which they don't believe that Jesus is their Messiah, and of course he is, but their Messiah, they have end time fantasies too.
Tim, I had text Marzon the other day, and I had to disagree with him, and I'm disagreeing with the opinion that it's not a big deal that Iran has a bomb. Iran can get the bomb from North Korea or from Pakistan tomorrow, or may even have them already. Most people realize AQ Khan, which got the materials and technology from us, which is a Pakistani nuclear physicist, got them from the U.S. government because we gave it to him, and it was paid for by the Saudi Arabians. So if the Saudis want
Saudi
nukes,
Arabia has the bomb.
Right, so if the Saudis have the bomb in Qatar and the Arab Emirates and everybody else, and then they decide to gang up and get Israel, Israel's going to go ape crazy, and they're going to nuke them all to hell. And if you don't think we're going to pull us into a nuclear war with Russia and China, let me tell you, I got a bridge on the moon for you, and it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be bad. And welcome back. And Tim, let's go through some of these things. I think that we're on the precipice of a controlled demolition of Europe and the world economic financial system.
Exactly.
And there's no need for it at all, by the way. We talked about in the last hour with Pete Fellig about the Carrot Bar's business opportunity, which basically brings us back to a gold standard immediately. By the end of the year, we'll have Carrot Cash and fractional parts of grams you can actually transfer electronically. And I want to link it up to what Professor McKinney is working with me, which is a electronic barter currency that can barter anything on Earth with a highly encrypted system that can't be broken by the FBI or NSA, and links directly with Carrot Bars. So you can have Carrot Bar Cash, which is a gold standard. So 1 gram of gold will buy 20 loaves of bread, whether it's now or 5 years from now, but your dollar may be worthless. And there's no need for starvation in Greece, which is, by the way, happening right now in riots. And I expect in the next few weeks, NATO will have to go in there and invade the country and have a military coup of the Greek government because of the financial chaos that the IMF and the European Central Bank are doing to the Greek people, which is a form of financial, I would call financial Mageddon, let's call it that.
Yeah, exactly.
A form of mass economic chaos.
There's an article I linked, I think it was yesterday, by Elaine Brown. She's an attorney. She does really great work. She's written a lot about the Federal Reserve System. And her article, and I strongly recommend it viewers on my news blog, Europe. By the way, if you want to go to it, just Google search Large Sterling Europe, and it'll take you right there. But I strongly recommend all my viewers read the whole thing. I want to read maybe about 3 or 4 paragraphs. The first one here, the article is called Greek Exit or Jubilee, How Greek Debt Can Be Annulled. The crushing Greek debt can be canceled the way it was made, by sleight of hand. By saving the Greek people and the economy is evidently not in the plan of the bureaucrats. Now, end quote here. I want to add a couple things. The former finance minister calls it a new Versailles treaty. The defense minister agrees, calls it a coup d'etat done by blackmailing the Greek prime minister with a collapse of banks and a complete haircuts on deposits. Now, it was a form of blackmail, but here's the thing. There's a way to cut this debt and without a loss to the bondholders. And now let me go back. There's about 3 or so paragraphs I want to read. Quote, the debt cannot be paid and should not be paid, but EU leaders justify their hard line as necessary to save the creditors from having to pay. The European taxpayers, governments, institutions, and banks holding Greek bonds. It is quite possible to grant debt relief, however, without hurting the bondholders. U.S. banks were bailed out by the Federal Reserve to the tune of more than $16 trillion in virtually interest-free loans without drawing on taxes. Central banks have a printing press that allows them to create money at will. The ECB, by the way, that means European Central Bank, quote, the ECB has already embarked on this sort of debt purchasing program. In January, it announced it would purchase 60 billion euros of debt assets per month, beginning in March, continuing to at least September 2016, for a total of 1.14 trillion euros of asset purchases. These assets are being purchased through quantitative easing, expanding the monetary base simply with accounting entries on ECB's books. Now, the IMF estimates that Greece needs debt relief of 60 billion euros. That's, quote, a mere 1 month of the ECB's quantitative easing program. The ECB could solve Greece's problem with a few computer keystrokes. Moreover, in today's deflationary environment, the effect would actually be to stimulate the European economy, end quote. So the point is that the European Central Bank, which has been a party to this Greek drama that we've been witnessing for the last few months, all it has to do is make a few computer keystrokes, and all this goes away. It was all funny money created anyway, and they can solve it with funny money, and it won't cost the Greeks anything. And it won't cost the Europeans anything, and the German banks won't take a hit, the German bondholders won't take a hit, and everybody comes out ahead, and it actually will aid the European economy. They don't want to do this because they want to seize assets, because these central bankers, headed by the Rothschild empire, the Rothschild family, the 30 families, they're all about funny money. They want some real assets, and that means they want to go in and have Greece sell them at a fire sale price. Their airports, their ports, their train stations, their water departments, their sewer departments, their energy systems, anything and everything that belongs to the Greek people that the Greek taxpayer has been paying for years, for decades, they want to seize and pay these bogus debts to the EBC, to the IMF, etc. It's all bogus, and it's all about stripping Europe, and they're coming after America too. The Greek is the Greek Republic is the beta test for everything, and we've seen the.
That's why Jade Helm is a test here on this level.
The Greek people, less than a week before, their prime minister sold them out. The Greek people went to an election, and over 60, I think it was 61%, voted a strong no. No more austerity fascism. Right. And yet, and supposedly the prime minister was right there with him, but in less than a week he did a complete flip flop.
He's another corrupt politician that just sold him out. And by the way, his political life is going to be short, but his bank account's full.
I'll bet you he has, and he can sue me. I'd love to have him sue me. I'll bet you he's got a few $100 million in a Cayman Island account or an account somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, I just want to report what we're talking about this stuff with Jade Helm. That the three Marines say, I am out of here. And I have the link here from galacticconnection.com. The actual video of these Marines that quit with Jade Helm. People don't understand what's going on here. These Marines are right in the front face of this monstrosity, which is a simulation of grabbing patriots like you and me, Tim, either executing us right at our doorstep or taking us off to civil detention camp with armed, we call occupying force against the civilian population of this country.
Well, I'll consider myself a Christian martyr if that happens. Hopefully,
well,
God
let's put it this way. I want them to know that this is from Dr. Deagle. I have armor-piercing weapons. If you come to my house with an intention to take me or my family away, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you quick, and I'm going to pierce your armor, and I'm going to send you to see your maker. You need to understand that. This is not going to be where and if you better bring extra body bags, not just for me and my family, but for your buddies, because you're not going home to mama. You need to understand that. And our Marine, by the way, most of our Marines are going to be on my side. I haven't met one Marine yet that I know here in North County that doesn't know that the government's not worth trusting and that they absolutely will side with the citizenry population against an out-of-control globalist federal population and a few stray people like some Navy SEALs that think they're nuts and will draw on American citizens. Your half-life, if you try to take on American citizens, will be very short, like a piece of raw meat.
People are waking up now.
Yeah, it'll be like a piece of raw meat among a bunch of very hungry Rottweilers. The meat will be on the ground about 4 milliseconds and it's gone. So if you want to be that raw meat, be my guest, idiots. People. And one of my youngest son, he was actually having a discussion with me, and he said, the police are an occupying force. And he's referring to Fox News that tries to apologize for the police. The police now are a lot of them ex-military. They're an occupying force. They're not like the RCMP officer when I was raised in Canada as a kid, or the police officer when I was in Colorado, where you'd show them some respect and they respect you. No, they're an occupying force, and they come in like thugs and figure they're going to beat you or taser you to death. I literally sat having dinner the other day with my friend and his wife. She's a district attorney and he's a criminal defense attorney. The 6'7" black man, ex-vet, was involved in, criminally basically trying to force somebody to take money out of their ATM. And he tried to plead not guilty because obviously he's suffering from PTSD. He was, twitching and stammering, and you could tell he was really not in good shape. And he said, I was innocent, and he held up a sign. They tasered him until I almost killed him right there in the courtroom just last week here in San Diego. Son of a bitch. Let me tell you, our police are out of control, and I don't care how much they try to apologize at Fox News or whatever about what's going on. They're out of control. Now, when you get to a certain point, and it is again with the military, they know if the dividing line comes, you're going to go with the public, because the public are armed to the teeth. There's 23 million veterans and 94 million armed Americans. If you lined up every army of every nation on earth, you couldn't take on the American public.
I think is it Minnesota or Virginia? There are more people with hunting rifles than the United States Army has soldiers.
Exactly. Now,
And
I want people to
anyway,
understand
the
we're
point
also
is,
very creative. We have
you're not going to take over this country, and that's one reason they tried so hard to get over.
Well, that's why they bring somebody like Obama to deconstruct
they
America.
They already have this country in many ways, but in terms of going the next
it's all a matter
step
of
in the martial law.
It's all a matter of disconnecting. If we have people get carrot bars or our electronic bartering system, if we start disconnecting from the economy, if we start disconnecting from the political system with pro se litigant action against our congressmen, senators, and forcing the courts to act like there is a constitution, because the courts don't. They have administrative courts pretending they're running under the old court system where there's actual rules of law. What's going on right now is in every family, I was saying this earlier, every family now has a family member that is aggravatingly, quote, a conspiracy theorist. And I had this discussion with my son. He doesn't like the term conspiracy theory, but he said about the fact that the police is an occupying force. I said, I have to agree with you. I said, everything you said, every syllable, every comma, every period of what you said qualifies you as a conspiracy theorist, which means there's a conspiracy of the government to create a police state to federalize cities. There's a conspiracy to hire police officers with marginal IQs that are ex-military and an occupying force in the Middle East and in Afghanistan or Iraq. And when they were going to bring them back here, they want them to use the same philosophy with Bearcats and heavy weapons and LRAD cannons to be an occupying force in America.
There's a little town nearby where I live. It's called Newburgh, and I noticed I drove past their police station the other day, and they have a military Hummer that they painted black and white.
Right.
And I thought, there's no crime to speak of here. Why do they need a military vehicle? Of course, in my town,
or a
Evansville,
Bearcat that can take a rocket-propelled grenade.
We've got an armored vehicle.
Right.
Armored military vehicle. And they have been distributing military vehicles, machine guns, helicopters, and so forth throughout America. I've even gone to the sites and seen what all is available. It's unbelievable. And, somehow we managed to make it through over 200 years of the American Republic without having police departments having tanks and armored vehicles. The same thing, a lot of the senior police officers are sent to Israel for training. Well, that's probably the last place we need to send police officers from a democratic institution. Now, there's a lot of still good cops.
The good cops never get promoted because the bad cops, and this is what happens even in the Justice Department, we have an injustice department.
We don't have a Justice Department, we have an unjust department.
Exactly, yeah. The point is, if you have a wife-beating husband and he takes a baseball bat out to the kitchen table and he smacks it and cracks the table in half, and he knows the next crack is going to be across his wife's head, you know he's a wife beater. When you see Bearcats and you see rocket-propelled grenades and LRAD cannons that can liquefy your liver at a half a mile and deafen you or taser or hit you with such a dazzle of so many candle power to literally make you blind for half an hour after they hit you, or make you seizure on the ground because they're either tasing you or hitting with these new we call seizure weapons. They can literally doesn't have to have a taser. They can just hit you and you seize and fall to the ground. If you think that they're not having this because they want to have a totalitarian control, you're nuts. The fact is that even when people are allergic to the term, like my youngest son of using the conspiracy theorist, he says lock, stock, and barrel exactly what I believe, which is a conspiracy theory.
Well,
now,
the term conspiracy theory was created and painted in a negative way by the CIA a long time ago.
Right.
And that's to give the dummies out there, he's just a conspiracy theorist, he don't know nothing. And, one of the things that I urge people not to do is turn off the damn TV. I have 2 TVs, I don't have cable service, and you know what? Basically, other than being somewhere at somebody else's house or when I used to go to my mom's room in the nursing home, I haven't watched TV for about a year and a half now. And
lately, once in a while, I'll watch Fox News and just see O'Reilly and he's the best of the worst of all these crazy maniacs.
I hate Fox
and my wife
News,
made this
I hate CNN, I hate all of them because they're all
let me
liars.
finish. What happened is, so my wife was very social. She says, look, all the women that O'Reilly interviews have long hair, tons of makeup. You have to kind of put it on with a trowel. and and they're all and the ones that are Republicans are like very vicious. You wouldn't want to get these ladies in a dark alley. And the ones that are the Democrats are dumb bimbos that say the most bizarre and obscene things, and they pop their eyes at you like, "Don't you believe me?" I'm thinking, "Excuse me, how did you get a day pass?" And then of course it makes O'Reilly look like a genius. It makes O'Reilly look like a genius because he's got these bimbos on, or he's got these what I call attack dog Republican females all dolled up too.
My wife died 16 years ago. 17 years ago, I walked away from. I was right there to start the fourth network or the fourth national evening newscast, to compete with ABC, NBC, CBS. And one of the things that I told some of the suppliers that came by, and they all were the people that were dealing with CNN and Fox, is I said, I'm going to have, for some of my face people, some of my reporters, I'm going to have some really good-looking women, but they're going to be very intelligent, and some good-looking guys. And I noticed a few months after that CNN and Fox started to hire the bimbos, and most of them are bimbos. There's no
some really smart ones that are
thinking.
okay too. But the problem is what they do is they make the other side look so ridiculous. It's like it's an obscenity to actually spend your time to watch them. It's like, I don't want to hear anymore. This is painful, O'Reilly.
I'm sorry. I was more or less in that business, and I used to sit with a watch and time how many seconds this story got and so forth. And I know what they're doing. I know how they're manipulating the public. Right. And I see these people, and I just can't stand to watch it anymore.
Well, I see O'Reilly trying to defend the police. It's like, they're undefendable, okay? The fact is that they're getting away with murder. And they could use less lethal forms of control, which is why no wonder the blacks and the other people are freaked out because they go in these areas and they know they're just going to pull a gun. Now, of course, you have out-of-control blacks, too, like this young giant that attacked this guy up.
That's part of the strategy. Look, starting under LBJ, they said to these poor little black girls, honey, you need to have a baby and we'll give you free money. But you can't have a husband and you can't have a boyfriend in the house. So pretty soon, you start having a lot of out-of-wedlock black children, and black children born in poverty and in welfare, and also in many cases, hard drug use. So now 80% of the black community, the children are born without wedlock. Now, many of the kids are very good kids, but not having a father increases dramatically the risk of having a thug as a son.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess they grow a whole new crop of...
I mean, it's all part of a devil's brew that they...
Broadcasters of captivating...
Welcome back, and Tim. You mentioned on the break something very important about the MH17 flight, of course, over Ukraine and how it was down. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, the Malaysian flight that was down. Now, this is not the one that disappeared over the ocean. This is the one that was blown apart, full of people over the Ukraine. And the Ukrainians naturally right away tried to blame it on the Russian allied rebel forces. I wrote an article. I wasn't the first to postulate the theory, but I took it farther than anybody did because of my aviation background. I wrote an article that what really happened was that Putin was the target. His state aircraft looked very similar to the plane, and the colorings and all were very similar to the plane that was shot down. But he was saved by the Russians' ECM spoofing and it's actually was believed by many to be an Israeli F-15 that was operating in the area. What they did is they electronically changed the squawk code on the Malaysian plane and on the presidential aircraft. That was just literally within minutes in exactly the same area. But they diverted the presidential plane north into Belarusia, and the MH17, the Malaysian airliner, was given the electronic squawk code of the presidential aircraft. They can do that electronically. There's no way on earth that the Russians didn't have a lot of stuff in the area to protect their president, and they saw what was happening. They protected him, and this plane went down. They tried to blame it on, like I say, the so-called rebels, the people fighting in eastern Ukraine. But the reality was, it was almost certainly an Israeli attempt. And remember, all the people running the coup government are dual national Israeli-Ukrainian citizens. It was really an Israeli attempt to kill Putin. One that failed, killed a lot of people, a lot of innocent people. And now additional information is coming out, and they're pretty certain now it was an Israeli Python air-to-air missile. That's an interesting air-to-air missile. It's very similar to the American Sidewinder, but they have a kind of like an infrared camera system on top of the Israeli fighter pilots' helmets. And when the pilot turns to look at an airplane off in a distance, the heat that linked to that missile is turned. And when they fire that missile, the missile takes off in the direction in which the pilot is looking at when he fires that missile. It's been out for quite a number of years. It's sophisticated, but they tried to shoot Putin down, and basically the missile hit just right at the looking on it face on the right side of the cockpit. And anyway, I was right, and it was a conspiracy theory, but I was right. So there you have it.
Well, the same thing as I talked to Professor McCanney. We're pretty certain now, after all the research for 4.5 years, that Fukushima Daiichi was an artificially created tsunami.
Yep.
There wasn't a proper P waves there. In fact, it had all the signatures that it was created specifically because of the fact that the Japanese gave nuclear materials to Iran, and the Israelis and the Americans used geotectonic weapons to trigger off the Fukushima Daiichi super tsunami that killed a lot of people and released radiation that's now creating a radioactive desert in the North Pacific Ocean. It's the first radiological desertification on Earth in history.
Yeah, and it's killing the hell out of sea life, mammals. And
a lot of people. They calculated in the first 6 months by actuarial tables that 22,000 additional Americans, adults and children died, and that the death rate of neonatal intensive care nursery went up 35 to 38% in the first 6 weeks after Fukushima on the east coast of the United States, not the west coast.
You know, well, when you look at the air currents, you can understand that. But, you know, Dr. Bell, I'm an analyst. And what I try to do, I always remind myself and remind people this is what I'm doing. I try to step back from the trees and look at the forest, then I try to step back much further and look at the patterns in the landscape, in the forest and surrounding forest. Then I even try to step back even further and look down on the planet. And there's a consistent pattern that shows up in Fukushima. It shows up in trying to take out the president of Russia. It shows up with the war in the Ukraine. It shows up with all the stuff that's happening in the Middle East, the destruction of the European and American and global economies, the poisoning of our food supply with Monsanto's Roundup, etc., the use of formaldehyde in all kind of products, the use of in toothpaste and drinking water, fluoride, right, which is dumbing down the population, et cetera, et cetera. And that interconnection has to do with the extreme Zionist. It has to do with a global banking cartel. It really is a fairly small group of people. They're devil worshippers. They're rotten and evil to the core, far beyond that which most people can begin to understand. And you're right. People like you and I, we don't think like them, but we can understand their thinking process. We're not like them, but we, for whatever reason, God's given us the ability to look at them and say, that's the rat, and that's how it works. And
I think I want to give people a little bit of an understanding of things that are often confusing, and this is inside and outside the church. People get to decide, like the one dying on the cross. Remember with Jesus, they said, "Today you will be with me in the kingdom." He didn't do anything in his life; he was in his death. I believe it says that Jesus went to speak to the spirits in spirit prison, or Tarshish, is what they called it. And here's what I think happens: at the moment of death, you get the epiphany, and you get to decide to be with God from whatever you've done during your life, or to reject God and therefore choose annihilation. And you get a vision of hell, of the hellishness of all the evil you've done, which is hell. But worse than hell is to be separated from the Creator and destroyed. So people don't just get to decide whether they go to heaven or hell on earth. They get to decide at death. So that's why I've resuscitated thousands of people, and I've seen many of them have come back from near-death experiences, transformed because they saw hell. I, in fact, remember one time when I was a medical student, I had my arms up to my shoulder, up to my elbow, inside his chest, massaging his heart. This guy said, help me, I'm in hell. Literally, he was screaming, and I'm thinking, that's where I got my curly hair from. And this guy's screaming, and he's in hell. I'm inside his chest, massaging his heart. Now, people need to understand, this is very real. These people have a hell experience because they have a decision at that moment, because they have a full epiphany. They have full knowledge of God and the righteousness of God and Jesus. They have a full knowledge of the evil they've done during their life, and they have to choose. Do they choose God and therefore forgiveness and their sins are taken away and they go to heaven? Or do they choose to die and be annihilated?
You're completely right. I've talked to lots of people with near-death experiences.
And that's what happened. I can tell you, as a doctor, you don't burn in hell.
Kubler-Ross first wrote her book many, many years ago. But here's another thing. Often people that are evil, they can't stand the presence of God.
Exactly.
But again,
I can't tell you. The most powerful thing we can do against our evil people is not just proselytic action or organizing or getting ready with your armaments. It's praying for them. If we pray for Obama and Hillary Clinton, if we pray for the evil ones, it lumps hot coals on them. It forces them into a position where God's going to give them grace or judgment. It takes them out of putting their foot or boot on our neck and our head and our face. And literally God says, because these people that are being persecuted and destroyed by these evil ones like Obama and Hillary Clinton and all these politicians, if we pray for them, God takes them out. He gives them grace, so there's repentance. You don't want to wish anyone go to the place of destruction.
Well,
I
think you're totally right, and I don't do enough of that because I get so ticked off at these.
Well, you know what? But
I should pray for them.
You turn it around and you start praying, and God takes away from you that. He takes away your anger and gives you a joy and bliss to realize you don't either save someone or you don't do anything to actually witness to them. What you do is act like I say, going fishing with God. You carry the tackle box and the bait. And God does it.
So pray for Hillary, pray for Obama, pray for all these jerks because
pray
they really
for George
need our
Soros. And you get down on your hands and knees and pray fervently for them. And guess what? God's going to give you relief of your own personal catastrophes that are coming on you. He's going to bless you, and he's going to bring these people to either repentance or destruction real quick. Interesting, eh? What a powerful tool to use, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take care. We'll be back tomorrow with another amazing show, Fire Line Hour 1.